Good evening, and welcome to Mental Health, Wellness, and Recovery. My name is Richard Weingarten, and I'll be your host for tonight's show. On tonight's show, my guests will be two young Afghan refugees who are affiliated with Yale University. I hope they will tell us who the Afghan people really are and a little about Afghan culture and the American influence in their country. I'd also like them to tell us about the challenges of starting one's life over in a foreign country. You may ask yourself, why should we discuss the Afghan people now that the war in Afghanistan is over? Well, for one thing, our country spent trillions of dollars trying to modernize their country and keep it out of the hands of the repressive Taliban forces. Thousands of Americans lost their lives in the war. Now more than 1,000 Afghan refugees are coming into Connecticut this year. Because our attention for the last 20 years was on the U.S. military and the war against the Taliban, we never really learned about the Afghan people. We never really learned what they wanted as a people, what they wanted for their country. And then in the chaos of the American withdrawal, we saw the desperate attempts by Afghan citizens to climb aboard U.S. jets rumbling out of the airport in Kabul. Then a week later, we saw the bombing of the airport and the loss of many more lives. Since the Americans pulled out, we've heard very little about Afghanistan. We've seen pictures of people hungry in long lines waiting for food. We've seen farmers standing beside their devastated fields, ravaged by the war and now by drought. But the question remains, who are the Afghan people? What are their aspirations? What is their culture like? What religion do they practice? How do they regard their families? What foods do they eat? What holidays do they celebrate, and how do they celebrate them? I also want to take a look at the American and NATO allies who are working to build Afghanistan during the 20-year war, which was the longest war in American history. What were they trying to do? Were they trying to modernize the country? And how did the Afghan people feel about the Americans and others in their midst? And what, if any, of their programs will survive under the Taliban? To help us answer these issues and who are the Afghan people really are, I am joined by my guests tonight, Sumaira Akbarzada and Aladdin Ibrahimi. Sumaira recently completed her master's degree in public health at Yale University and is now working at the university. Aladdin recently came to the U.S. from Ohio. Well, she came from Turkey to Akron and then got a master's at Akron and now is working on his PhD in medical engineering. We're going to have them talk a little bit about their time in America and how it was starting here in America. Sumaira, when did you and your family arrive in California, and what was it like starting over for them in California?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for having us on your show. And before I start, I just want to let the viewers know that whatever we discuss here tonight, whatever opinions we share, it's solely our opinions. So we're not representing the larger Afghan community. But yes, so I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, and I actually came to the U.S. when I was 5 years old. My family came to California, and we were actually very fortunate. When my family came, we already had our other relatives already settled in California. My aunts, my uncles, and my grandma were here. So when we came, we didn't have much difficulty. We had a very strong family base as well as a very strong Afghan community in California that helped us resettle.
Great. And Aladdin, how about you? When did you come to the United States, and what was it like coming to a foreign country? Because you were a young man at that time, weren't you?
Again, thank you so much for having me on the TV. I actually was born in Afghanistan, in Herat, which is on the western border of Afghanistan. We are at the border with Iran. So I started my school during Taliban regime, and then finished my high school in 2012, moved to Turkey for undergrad, and then I came for my master's to Ohio. So I finished my master's degree in Ohio, and then following that one, I worked a year at the National Institutes of Health as a pre-doctoral fellow, and then right now I'm doing my PhD at Yale University in biomedical engineering.
Could you tell us a little bit about what the biomedical engineering is all about?
Yeah, sure. So my undergraduate and master's were on mechanical and aerospace engineering, which is more mathematical and engineering aspect. But I have always wanted to help the health and the people, the health crisis that's going on around the world. So the biomedical engineering is bringing both the engineering aspect and the medicine and the health together. It's from designing the medical devices such as MRI, PET scanner, all the way to vaccine development, drug development, everything combined in the same field. So it's a very new and a very broad aspect of both engineering and medicine combined together.
What did you think of American hospitality when you came to Akron and then New Haven?
So I was at university, and luckily every university in the United States has an office called International Student Office, which is mainly responsible with welcoming international students from all around the world, and in the same way. So coming to United States was very welcoming for me because they already had these established programs that welcome the international students. And beside that one, there were affiliated organizations that they were working closely with the universities in order to have students over for, like, let's say Friday night dinners, a game night. And I also used to play soccer. So through that one, I was playing a club soccer for the university. So through that one, I get to know so many other international students and American students, and get together with them and know their families. And there were times that they were inviting me over for in a special occasion like Thanksgiving dinner, since I didn't have any family here. So they were very welcoming toward me.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about family. Sumaira, you came to California and your family was there. Tell me a little bit about the importance of the family in the life of a person like yourself.
Of course. So when I first came to California, I was very fortunate. A lot of my cousins were already here. So when I actually started school, I started kindergarten, and my cousin was in the same classroom as me. So
how fortunate.
I didn't know how to speak English, obviously, when I first came. So I was very fortunate. My cousin was with me, and he would translate everything. And then just growing up, family was always really important. Again, I know with more in the American culture, you develop friendships in school and in classrooms. For me, it was mainly my cousins. My best friends were my cousins growing up. So family's always been really important.
And family really helps people along in their lives too, don't they? Alajin, tell us a little bit about how families can influence their family members, especially young people growing up in the family.
So the most important part is knowing what family is for Afghans. So when we say family, it's not only the close family or the nuclear family as your brothers and sisters. It consists of your uncles, cousins, even like far relatives. So they are all under the chamber of being family. Like growing up myself, we had an alley that we were living there. So they were like cousins of my father, and they were all living there, and they were all like my uncles. So in Afghan tradition and culture, it's very common that we are always with the family in their sad and happiness time. So no matter what is happening in their life, we are always beside them. And that's why when we say the family, even the far family, relatives, they all contribute to your process of decision making. If you plan to go to a college, everybody gives their ideas and thoughts. Hey, you got to do this, or you need to study this one or go to this university. Getting married the same way. Getting a job. If you know somebody in a company or in a branch that they are working and they know an opening spot, they will always notify their family, relatives, and try to push and help them.
I know in the Middle East, weddings are a big deal, and they're very expensive. How are they paid for?
So I would say that's too expensive. So because Afghan wedding, minimum it consists of thousands of people. And just only feeding, it's a lot. So we have, and the weddings are not only one day, it's multiple days. You have before the wedding night, the day after the wedding, 2 days after that. So there are lots of expenses, and then the families, the bride family buys lots of gifts and clothes to the grooms, and the grooms buy it to brides. So the people who can afford it, it's a lot of expense. And the people that can't afford, then again, the sense of helping each other comes in, and then close families and far relatives, everybody contributes. So in the villages, if you go, for instance, when there is a wedding, everybody, somebody gives their house in order to be the wedding place. Somebody buys, brings a goat or a sheep or a cow. Somebody brings rice. so that they put everything together and cook for the wedding day. And then at the end of the wedding, all this family and like the relatives, they come and give like a gift to the bride. Mostly it's gold.
Cool.
So then the bride gets lots of like golds following the wedding that somehow help them out after starting their new life.
I see. Interesting.
So it's like a big.
You know, I've heard that in Afghanistan, like 95% of the people are Islam and
Muslims.
Muslim.
They follow Islam.
Yes. And could you talk a little bit about that, Sumaira? What are some of the practices that you follow? I know that that Islam celebrates Friday as their Sabbath.
Yes.
You know, how does that work out for you guys when you're in school on Friday?
So it's a little difficult. Well, Islam, there's 5 main pillars of Islam, and one of them is praying 5 times a day. It's at different times throughout the day. The earliest one is at sunrise, and then it follows the rotation of the sun, right? So for me personally, it's a bit difficult. I try my best to pray whenever I can. It's usually my night prayers that are easy to do, because during the day I'm not home. And then another pillar of Islam is fasting, believing in Allah, believing in Muhammad as his messenger, making the pilgrimage to Mecca, and then also zakat, which is giving money to the poor. I think either 20% or 25%.
Yeah, it's like 2.5.
2.5%.
You can pay more if you want. I would say.
2.5% of our income that we have to give to charity. So those are the pillars of Islam, and I try my best to follow them to the best of my ability. But yeah.
Aladdin, can you tell us a little about some of the holidays that are associated with the religion?
Yeah, so there are 2 major holidays in Islam and Afghanistan, which we call them Eid, or basically means like a fast. So it's Eid al-Fitr, or a small Eid that comes after Ramadan, that we are fasting for like 29 or 30 days, and then we have 3 days of celebrating the Eid. And then the other one is Eid al-Qurban, or we call it Qurban with a K, which is, it comes from Arabic word, means to sacrifice, that it comes from the time that Prophet Abraham wanted to sacrifice his son for God. And then that day has been being commemorated like in Islam, that we sacrifice an animal, like either like a sheep or a goat, a cow or a camel, for God, and then you distribute the meat of that one for poor people. Like 1/3 goes toward the poor people, 1/3 you keep it for your guest, again inviting friends and family over, and then 1/3 for yourself. So these 2 are the biggest holidays that are from Islam in Afghanistan.
You know, I remember when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Brazil, I remember how difficult it was for me to adjust to the food. The food was the most difficult adjustment. And I remember one time going into the capital of Bahia, where I was located, and we were there as a group. All the people that just arrived in Brazil came to the capital to have meetings to share experiences and to kind of process the first few months that were very difficult for us. So I remember going to the hotel, not seeing anybody there that I recognized. So I went over to a Chinese restaurant because I wanted food that was familiar to me. So I go to the Chinese restaurant, I entered the restaurant, and what do I see? 6 or 7 other Peace Corps volunteers there having Chinese
All
food.
Americans,
All
right?
Americans, yeah. That was the food that we knew from America. We wanted that. What about you guys? Has it been an adjustment for you to get used to the food here?
Well, I grew up here, so just growing up, I was very fortunate to have my mom always cook for me. And I think you never know the value of something until you kind of lose it. So now I'm living far away from my family. My entire family's in California. I'm here alone in Connecticut. And now the one thing that I crave the most is Afghan food. Even though when I was growing up in California, I always wanted to have fast food and eat outside. So yeah, I mean, food is such an important part.
You miss it, huh?
I miss it terribly. And you know, I'm not trying to be biased or anything, but I think my mom is one of the best cooks in the world.
She spoiled you, didn't
yeah,
she?
she did. My mom, yeah. So I think that's the one thing that I miss the most.
Yeah, how about you, Aladdin? How has the adjustment for the food been for you?
So for me, when I first moved out of Afghanistan, I was 18 years old, and I went to Turkey. So the cuisine, the food in Turkey is close to Afghanistan. We use similar kind of dishes. It's different, but it's almost the same taste. So it wasn't a big adjustment there for me. But once I came to United States, everything like new, and I was by myself. So that's why I needed to learn how to cook. And I still cook, like I still cook Afghani food for myself. And as you say, like the taste of every food, every country tradition, they're all amazing, but every country has different taste buds. So that's different.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, I would just, like rice is a big thing in Afghanistan,
Right.
and rice and bread. And the way we make the rice, every rice piece should be separated from another one, so they
right.
should not stick to each other. But if you can see, like in the Eastern Asian countries, they are mostly like sticky rice together, which like if you tell Afghans, they are like, no, we don't want to eat that one.
Yeah.
So it's hard to adjust for those ones.
Yeah. What about your mother? She's here with you now for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
time.
so-
How does she adjust to the food? It must be very difficult for her, I would think.
Yeah, so my mom, like as she said, like all the moms are amazing chefs and
His
cooks in
mom cooks
Afghanistan.
amazing. I was very fortunate to try her cooking
So,
too.
so I mean, my mom, I would say, she didn't like it going out and eating outside, and she would always say, like, if I just make plain rice at home, that's the one I want. I just don't want to, because it's very hard for her. Also, she's like 60 years old, and she always cooked Afghani foods, and our food is very broad too, and like we have so many different dishes, but it is very different in tasting compared to whatever is in Western countries or Eastern Far East countries.
There are quite a few Turkish restaurants in New Haven, so maybe that would be
Right.
a nice
I mean,
place
like
for
the
your mother
Turkish
to-
restaurant, I actually took her and she liked it.
Okay.
Because that is close to our food, I would say. Because we have sort of Afghanistan and Turkish food and Iranian food and Indian food. They are in the same realm, like they are close to each other. Not exactly the same, but you get similar taste from different dishes. So that's why those ones are easier for us to like adapt compared to like completely Western food. But I should mention she loves like burgers. That's
She likes
like-
burgers?
Yes, but
Oh.
not all the time. Yeah, that's the only like Western food. Like she's
I
like,
see.
yes, we
Well, there
got
are
to
lots
have
of burger
burgers.
restaurants around, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
that's for sure. Yeah,
I've heard that there are like a large Afghan community in New Jersey, and there are probably some good restaurants there. Have you guys been to any of those yet?
I have not, but I have Googled it and I have looked up in Yelp. So supposedly some of the best restaurants are actually in New York. So that's
Yeah.
on my bucket list.
I have been to the restaurants in New York called Ariana, and their food is amazing. It's good.
Yeah.
And I've traveled around states, and wherever I went, I tried their food, like Afghani food. So I lived 1 year in DC. There were like 2-3 big Afghani restaurants there because there's a community in Alexandria in Virginia. I tried the food in Chicago, in California, but I think like New York is also very good.
Have you guys had any New Haven pizza yet?
I have.
What do you think?
So it's good. I guess the most famous one, at least I heard about, was mashed potato pizza. I guess, so I'm like, let me try it. So I tried it. It was okay. It didn't live up to the hype, but yeah.
They don't have Pizza Hut in Kabul or Kandahar?
They do.
Yeah, but like we do have that one. So in terms of pizza, like I feel the pizzas that are in Afghanistan, it was also for me to even adjust to this one, because the pizzas in Afghanistan, when they bake it, it has lots of ingredients. Like the crust is basically nothing. It's everything that is on top of it. But in compared to what you eat here, like, okay, margarita is just a crust and a tomato sauce or maybe some basil. So that was like, okay, I'm eating a bread with tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Okay, and compared to like the pizzas that they make in Afghanistan, like the local places that they have lots of ingredients on top. It's like
I see.
almost like a cake with lots of food on
The
it.
pizza
Okay.
there was really good, actually. Now, when I recall, and I don't know if this is right. They put ketchup on top of the
Yes,
pizza.
that's
don't
the
they?
thing that we put.
We
Yeah.
put ranch, right? In the U.S. In Afghanistan, they put ketchup.
Ketchups, yeah.
Let me change the topic a little bit right now. Look back at Afghanistan and its economy, okay? What was the economy like, say, before the Taliban took over in the 90s? What was it like? You said earlier that it was
Agriculture.
primarily agricultural.
yeah,
What
so-
sort of products did they produce?
Well,
Did they
I'm
grow?
just talking about from my family. My family's from Kandahar, which is in southern Afghanistan, and my grandpa owned a lot of land in Kandahar, lots and lots. And I think the three main things that they grew were pomegranates, grapes, and watermelons. And
the grapes are famous, aren't they?
famous. The grapes of Kandahar are especially famous. And there's many different kinds, like 20 different kinds, right?
Do they,
I mean, I
do
just
they
wanna
make
mention
wine out
that-
of those grapes?
Also, Herat has really...
Herat, we have more than 70 different types.
Okay.
of-
Whoa.
Herat and Kandahar. So.
Yeah, because we are like neighbors, literally in the same
Oh, okay.
region. so-
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and then my grandfather would export those to India. So, yeah.
I see it. How about your family? What are they involved in? say,
So
traditionally?
like, I mean, they were mostly farming, but not so much of big lands, and they were rich. We were not. But I mean, I'm saying our family, like our city, that they were mostly farming, and they were like self-sustained farms in Afghanistan. But besides exporting fruits and vegetables, they were a big exportation of carpet. Like Afghanistan, like right now everybody says like Persian rug, but there's like Afghani rugs that are really famous, like a handwood. And that was a big like source of income for the families
Yeah.
that they were
What sort
making.
of economic changes did America and its NATO allies bring to Afghanistan?
So I mean, like before like the NATO camps and the Taliban, there was like all civil wars and the Taliban regime. The economy was like broken, like literally nothing was there. After like United States and NATO, United Nations, when they came to Afghanistan, like they brought with themselves a lot of support, basically financial supports, and with them came along lots of companies. Either was commercial companies or there were new companies formed in Afghanistan. So those companies like opened ways for new jobs for the people, and beside like education was available for the people easily. So that's why it was.
And for the women and girls too,
Yes,
right?
that was like a biggest step because women were not allowed to go to school during the Taliban.
Actually, women were not even allowed to leave their homes without a male relative
Oh
under
my
the
gosh.
Taliban.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
they
that
were
wa-
very restricted. But thankfully, once the U.S. came and the 20 years, there was a lot of improvements in women's rights, especially in education and in getting jobs and just women having more freedom.
Now, what's happened to the women since the Taliban took over?
One thing for sure is I'm not sure exactly which cities, because some cities they are allowing girls to go back to school. But I know right now in Kabul, my understanding is that they're still not allowed to return to Kabul
So
University.
yeah, it's like big because like after during the Taliban, like it was very devastated. The U.S. military and United Nations came in, so the economy was developed. And then in this 20 years, most of the people, the young, like Afghanistan, more than like 60-70% of Afghans are young adults between 25 to 40 years old. So most of these people were raised during this period with democracy and the way they want to live. And then right now what happens,
Five more minutes, guys.
so then basically what happened is once they left, right now because there was economical problem, like they cannot pay their teachers and they don't know how to organize the country. So it's like everything is shut down, even like the schools for boys and girls. And they're trying to open, but as Sumera was saying, it's very limited for girls.
Yeah, it's
It's
basically
very
The
hard for them.
Taliban really don't have the skills to govern, do they? That's never been their strength or something they've had to do, right?
No,
Yeah.
they haven't.
Yeah, that's like a biggest issue. Like they don't know, I think they don't know how to organize the country and manage
I
it.
think when they first took over, was it in 1995? It was after a very brutal civil war that they came, and it was really easy for them to take over the country then. But now, after 20 years of like Western progression, I don't think they're going to have the same success as they had when they initially took over in the 1990s.
Is there a resistance in Afghanistan towards the Taliban?
Yes.
Is it organized or is it sort
It's
of
not
informal at this
organized,
point?
but I've just personally been following a lot of women rights activists in the country, and you know they've been very courageous. They've been organizing protests in Kabul.
Really?
So
Yeah.
you never saw that in 1995.
Do you still have family over there, Aladdin?
Yes, I actually have my uncle, my grandma, and one of my aunts living there in Afghanistan.
Do they want to come here?
I mean, yeah, my uncle used to work for U.S. military and U.S. Army, not directly, but indirectly. He was a mechanic fixing helicopters. And right now he wants to leave the country, but he cannot, and he's being forced to go to work and work for the Taliban, not being paid even. If he doesn't, his life is like kind of in danger. Indirectly, they are threatening him. And
How about you? Do you have any family still there?
I don't have any immediate family. My mom does have a lot of family again in Kandahar, and they are not trying to leave because that's all they know. That's their life there. They don't want to go to a new country and start over. But it's really difficult because Kandahar is more of a conservative city, and it's actually the stronghold of the Taliban.
Okay,
So
very nice.
yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the Scholars at Risk program, because
Sure.
I gather universities in this country are trying to bring over
More
talented
Afghans.
people, Afghan people, that
Yeah.
to study here, because there's really no future for them in Afghanistan.
And they're threatened by the Taliban. Yeah, it's a program that actually started in 1999 in the University of Chicago, and now they have their main chapters in Harvard, NYU, and UCLA, but we're hoping to start one at Yale. It's actually being spearheaded by one of my favorite professors from Yale, Dr. Khushnud. He's originally from Iran, but he's been an amazing ally to the Afghan people. So he's trying to get as many Yale professors on board to sign a letter to the Yale's president, so we can hopefully initiate this program in Yale and get more Afghan scholars coming here.
Great. My last program was on Elena's Light. Would you guys, I know both of you are supporters of Elena's Light.
100%.
Talk about that, will you please? What is Elena's Light, and what
So-
are they doing here in New Haven?
Yeah, so Elena's Light is basically started by an Afghan refugee woman who came here 10 years ago. So what is she providing? It's like a nonprofit organization that is helping other Afghan women, like teaching them language, teaching them like about the healthcare, and helping them to self-sustain
That's
after
great.
they move to United
That's
States.
wonderful. Now, if people want to donate to Elena's Light, there's a
Definitely.
their,
Go to the
their
website.
website is on the
Elena's Light.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me let's give a takeaway to our viewers now, starting with you, Samira.
Sure.
What's your takeaway for people watching the show tonight?
Yes, definitely. So just for the Connecticut, I guess, residents or the North Haven, New Haven community, to welcome the Afghan refugees with open arms. These people lost everything. They're in a new country, new culture, new language, and they're just like you and me. They just want a better life for themselves and their kids. So
Great.
please get involved, donate to Elena's Light, and get involved in any refugee resettlement agencies in your city or in
Wonderful.
your town.
What would you say, Aladdin?
Yeah, like basically the same thing. I mean, remember that all these people were forced to leave their countries, and so many of these people are very talented one, and they come, and if they are being helped to start a life here, they would definitely contribute back to the community that they are living. So I just ask the people to welcome them with open arms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming to the show tonight. I really enjoyed talking with you and finding out more about Afghanistan people and what's going on in Afghanistan, also what's going on in this country too, with people from your country.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure really having you on the show
Thank
tonight.
you for having us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for North Haven television community for having them tonight. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for the viewers for tuning in tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show, and remember to welcome our Afghan friends with open arms. Thank you so much.